Good evening, everyone. My name is Tina Hewerman, and I am one of the amazing Detox Divas. You can see those beautiful people up top there. We've got Landy, Michelle, Chelsea, Jessica, Courtney, and Madison. And we've got such an amazing guest for you tonight. I'm going to go through some housekeeping first before I introduce her. But Donna is so excited for this event. I've been talking to her all week. We've been just having some great chats, and I love everything that she has to say with you tonight. So move this bar out of the way. And oh, let me try it a different way here. Hold on. Let's go slideshow. Sorry, just a second. There we go. Okay, now we're ready. So good evening. I want to introduce you to the most important people in the company, or some of the most important people, Paula Sarkella and Ben Sarkella. They are our founders of this amazing company. It was launched with a simple purpose. I hear Paula say all the time, make an impact, make an impact. And that's what these products do. It started with the Healing Trilogy and Ben's story. If you've not heard Ben's almost life-ending situation where Paula had to call her best friend, our founder, our formulator, Alexandria Brighton. Oh, someone needs to mute. That is. I can't mute. Did we get them already? Nope. Here it is. Sorry, hold on, guys, just a second. There we go. We got it muted. Okay. Anyway, Paula had reached out to Alexandra to come back out of retirement to create something that was going to help her husband recover from vasculitis of the stomach, I believe is what it was. But it was a vascular inflammation in the vascular system. And that's how Mind, Body, and Soul was birthed and how HB Naturals came to be. We do want to make it perfectly clear that the statements made in this call, on our websites, any literature or post or anything like that that you see, none of this has been evaluated by the FDA. The FDA does not regulate supplements, which is one of the reasons I love Heart and Body Naturals, because there are so many checks and balances to ensure that the products that you are receiving, you are taking and giving to your families are of the highest quality. Heart and Body Natural products are not intended to diagnose, prevent, treat, cure any disease. The information on our website in literature and in presentations is not intended as medical advice. Please check with your healthcare provider. Any decisions you make about your food or supplement choices should be made with the one-on-one help of a qualified healthcare physician. So I am going to go right into this because I know she has a lot to share. So I don't want to take up a lot of time on the front end. Donna, you see if you can share your screen while I introduce you. I think I have to stop share.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me stop share. Donna has 25 years in the health and wellness industry, starting with studies in nutrition. She is advanced therapeutic massage therapist for 22 years, an embodiment coach for 10 years, a novice biodynamic regenerative farmer since 2020, and creating a new future as a soil food web consultant and a compost expert. So I am going to turn this meeting over to Donna. I'm so excited for you guys to hear everything that she has to say. I'll give her a second to.
I know, I'm just getting this all together. Hi, everybody. I'm super excited about being on the call. Honestly, I could talk about this for 3 hours, and tonight that's my biggest dilemma because I've had to continue shrinking down this call over and over again. And in the final moments, I'm shrinking it down for you guys. But I hope that I give you guys the meat and the energy of what the microbiome is, because it is just this incredibly fascinating thing that is the source of life on the planet Earth, is the source of life in our bodies. And, you know, us in HBN, we are always looking for natural ways to heal ourselves. That's the whole point. That's why I love this company so much, is because it truly does get the idea that nature has the answers for us. And then the part of nature that has the greatest answer for us actually is the microbiome. So, anyways, tonight's call is called Trust Your Gut, which is kind of funny because the microbiome lives in our gut. And we're really exploring what that miraculous world looks like tonight. So, anyways, thanks for having me on. I really am excited. We'll see how this all unfolds. And Tina, just feel free to jump in anytime and kind of play with me here too. Totally fine with that. Um, So let me just kind of get my other notes up real quick so I kind of stay on track. Okay, so let's talk about what is the microbiome real fast, okay? So let's talk about human beings first. Our species, we are one species. There's just one species of human beings, and we have 20,000 genes, okay? Bacteria, they're in our body, we could have as much as 40,000 bacteria. And I'm talking about 40,000 species. I'm not talking about 40,000 bacteria that all look the same. So imagine if there were different species of human beings. Imagine if there were 40 different species of human beings. That's what we're talking about here. And among those 40,000 species of human beings, or I should say bacteria, sometimes we think they're human beings because they are actually kind of running the show. We'll find out later. They actually have over 2 million genes. So we're completely outnumbered by them, okay? Like, I thought about this really strong one day. I'm like, okay, so actually I am way more bacteria, fungus, and parasite than I am human being. And when we start to learn like this massive communication network that they are actually controlling everything. We don't feed ourselves, we feed our bacteria. We feed our parasites, we feed the biome in our body. And the biome is like what connects every single thing and is just constant like flow of life within us and on the planet too. So just think about that for a minute. Sometimes I feel like maybe I'm just like a robot inside of a head of this like mechanism, but really, I'm pretending to run the show, but it's like more like a game, really the bacteria doing it all. So on the broad spectrum though, there are over 5 million species of fungi and 300 species of parasites and 380 trillion viruses living on in our body. So that even kind of like makes it a little bit bigger, right? Like, okay, so how would you even take control of something like that? You can't. You cannot take control of something like that. What you can do though is you can create a really amazing environment where it, which is an intelligence all on its own, can start to thrive again. And that's what's so cool about this new gut product that we have is that's exactly what it does. It's not a probiotic. It's not saying, hey, I know you could have 30,000 species of bacteria in your gut, and that would be ultimate health there for you probably, because that would be such a diversity. And not only just talking about bacteria, we're talking about all sorts of other things too, right? Fungus and parasites and all sorts of different things. And we try to throw maybe we try to throw 50 billion, 3 different species at our gut, and it just can't, it's like, it's not going to work. And we've kind of been fooled in that direction. And finally, science is starting to kind of come up with that idea that like, oh yeah, that really isn't creating a diverse microbiome, which is actually what we require. But somehow we've gotten into this whole idea that like we're at war, with bacteria and viruses and parasites. And we even take a lot of pride in the products that we sell, like, oh, fulvic acid mineral powder is antiviral and antibacterial and antimicrobial and all this stuff. But here's what actually it is. Fulvic acid mineral powder actually is just a carbon molecule chain that when we take it into our bodies, it actually helps support our gut lining to create an environment where diversity can emerge. And when you have the diversity of the microbiome, you don't need to worry about the good and the bad guys because they're working it out on their own. And that's pretty cool. I think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. So I've never seen a product like this before. When I first got into HBN back in November, I started taking the products. And I remember calling Michelle up one day and be like, you think they'd ever create something that's not actually a probiotic? And she had no idea, but here it is, and showed up like asking you shall receive, right? So I did get really inspired about kind of all of this. I mean, I've always been in the health and natural world and all that stuff, but I guess about 6 years ago, my husband had a very severe brain injury, and he got it from a pharmaceutical product. And it left him invalid almost, really. I mean, it was really scary. And there were times where he thought, I'm like, I don't want to live. Like, this is not the quality of life I care to have. And I even had to get to the place where I'm like, hey, that's your choice, like you get to choose what you do with your life, not me. And I'd love to keep you around. So what if we just did it one day at a time, right? And we just took you off all the medication and we just let's see what nature has. Let's see what nature can do for us. And just do it one day at a time. And so he agreed to do that. He's like, okay, I'll do it one day at a time and we'll see how it goes and I'll reevaluate in a month. And then I'll reevaluate in another 2 months and I'll reevaluate in a year. Well, we got set up with a naturopathic doctor. We got him off of all processed foods and anything that was conventionally farmed. And I'll kind of go into a little bit about why that is. But the biggest thing you need to know now is that a lot of the food that's conventionally farmed destroys our microbiome. So we changed a lot of that for him. And the long story short is that within 8 months, a lot of therapy, and it wasn't easy, he was 85% better. Do you know his medical doctors even fired him as a patient because he was unwilling to do what they wanted him to do, even though they knew that the only option they had for him was an intravenous monthly immune suppressant drug that would most likely give him another incurable brain disease within 2 years. That's all they had for him. But then when we said, hey, we're going to do the natural route, they were like, okay, well, we don't want to keep you. They didn't want to see what was going to happen. Did you have something to say?
I was just going to say that's I've heard of that so many times when a patient wants to go to a natural holistic approach to their health or even complementary to what the doctor is prescribing.
Yeah.
They don't want to even work with you if you are talking to them about that. So sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. It's totally great. Yeah. Anyway, let me show you guys a picture of my husband. He's just super cute. But this is him now. He worked so hard on the farm. He was telling someone the other day, he's like, man, he was actually in medicine for 25 years before we decided to kind of jump ship in all of medicine and just move to the country and have our own little farm. And he's like, man, I work so hard every day. I've never worked this hard in my whole life. I go to bed bone tired, sometimes achy, but I wake up every morning like completely excited to do it again. And he has this kind of motto that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And so, we aren't making a lot of money doing this. It's one reason why I'm super grateful for HBN2 and the business aspect of that, because farming isn't a high profitable thing, especially when you're getting started and trying to figure it all out, and especially when you're trying to do it the right way. And so what is the right way? Well, when I was trying to help my husband detox from lots of heavy metals that were caused from the pharmaceutical drug that he took, also numerous amounts of dyes that were put in his body from like all the MRIs that he had over the course of 2 months. And I mean, he was on IV steroids and oral steroids for about a month straight. So we had a lot of detoxing to do. And somehow I got across a podcast or something with this guy here, Dr. Zach Bush. I'm super curious if you guys have ever heard of him or not. He's super brilliant. And if you haven't heard of him, like check him out. He's actually a triple board certified physician who studied internal medicine and endocrinology. And then he got into cancer research and he was actually creating chemotherapies. And when he was creating chemotherapies, he was actually studying vitamin A in carrots. And somehow just all these things kind of started unfolding for him. And he started to realize the bigger picture. And he also started to realize that, actually all disease, no matter what it was that he was looking at, whether it was cancer or like an ulcer in a person's foot who had diabetes, fundamentally it was all the same thing, which was inflammation. And so then he started asking, okay, well, what's at the root of the inflammation? And then he started to realize that if he wanted to keep his Hippocratic oath and do no harm, the only thing he could continue doing would be hospice care. So he got a third certification in hospice care. And from there, he's just become an international recognized educator, thought leader on the microbiome specifically, and as it relates to health, disease, and our food system. And so he's a really cool guy. And he's taught me so much, most of what I'm going to share with you tonight, and most of what I incorporate on my farm and in my own life, and definitely with my husband's, well-being and getting him well. I really got a lot of it from Dr. Zach Bush. So on this particular call that I was on, they were talking about GMO crops and bioengineered crops. And I really had never really paid much attention to that. I was into nutrition. I was into eating healthy, like eating fruits and vegetables and having all the colors on my plate and all that stuff. But I didn't really understand this other undercurrent of what was going on in our food industry and with our food and being poisoned and things like that. So basically these crops, there's 10 crops that they sell in the United States. And what they mean by being genetically modified is that they're all artificially manipulated through genetic engineering so that they can endure a direct application of an herbicide or a weed killer called glyphosate. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of glyphosate before. I'm surprised that so many people haven't heard of this because it is so detrimental to not only our health and our bodies, but also the health of the planet. But another very popular name of it is Roundup. So let's just look at what Roundup does. First of all, Roundup is non-selective, so it will kill any plant it touches. And that's why they had to create these genetically modified seeds so that the plants that came up would be able to withstand all of the herbicide, glyphosate, being put on it. Okay. So first of all, glyphosate is a mineral chelator. And what that means is it ties up the minerals and the nutrients, making them unavailable to the plant and also unavailable to us. They also destroy the microbiome of the soil. And therefore, they also destroy the microbiome in our bodies. So just like our bodies, we need the microbiome to function. The plants need the microbiome too. And it's this symbiotic relationship that we have with the microbiome. I give things to the microbiome when I eat, and it gives things back to me like communication. It sets my hormones right, and it does a whole lot of cool things we're going to go into in a minute. But it is the greatest defense for our immune system as well. And so, you don't want that to get destroyed. And then it also promotes gut dysbiosis. And you may hear me say that a little bit. Gut dysbiosis is when you're disturbing the balance and taking down the diversity of the microbiome. And it impairs neurotransmitter function, and it highly increases inflammation and more. And the more that I couldn't put on here because I ran out of space was that it is a patented antibiotic. So let's just think about this for a second. We know that antibiotics destroy our gut microbiome. We know that. So we are very careful before choosing an antibiotic. And sometimes we may find ourselves like, you know what, I got to do it. It's like antibiotic or die, right? Then you love the antibiotics, and the antibiotics are beautiful then. I'm grateful for the antibiotics at that time. And yes, you can heal from the antibiotics too. A lot of people, though, don't understand this, and they just pop antibiotics all the time, and they're really, really having a hard time ever really kind of recovering and healing from that. And possibly because they don't even have the tools anyways. If they're popping antibiotics all the time, then they don't have the tools on what it's going to actually take to heal their bodies, really. But, here, like glyphosate is the #1 herbicide used on the planet. I mean, billions and billions and tons of just this stuff is dumped on our planet every day. It's water soluble, so it goes in the water. It comes up through the rain. I mean, it comes up through the evaporation. It goes down in the rain. So even if you have an organic crop, which is, you can't use glyphosate, you still find glyphosate residue on it because it's just in the atmosphere now. It's in our water, it's in our soil everywhere. But you are going to be taking a lot less of it in if you are eating foods that have a saturation of it on there. But, so not only are we just dumping all this antibiotic on our body, but that's the main source of the antibiotics that we're eating. So even if you and I don't do everything we can to never have to take an antibiotic, my daughter's had one antibiotic in her whole entire life and she's 15. Okay, we don't go that route ever, but we're eating antibiotics every day, whether we like it or not. And if you also are eating meat from a conventional farmer, then you're eating antibiotics there too. You might think that the doctors are the highest producers of antibiotics, and then you may think that, okay, the livestock, people who produce our meat may be the second producers. No, actually, glyphosate is the #1 producer of antibiotics in our systems. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it's really, really important with this conversation. And I've seen this so many times on Facebook from all of us in HB Naturals, and we know this, that all illness is rooted in a body that's deficient in nutrients, overloaded with toxins and debris, and depleted of vital energy. And that happens primarily in our lives right now with what we got going on. For those of us who are really health conscious, we're probably getting the biggest hit from glyphosate. And what's really cool on the flip side of that is that if we can, there's many things that we can do to counteract this. We're not at a loss, trust me. We've got these great products that we can use, and there's lots of other things that we can do too that we'll talk about in a minute. So we don't have to totally be afraid of this, as long as we're making the best choices that we can. But yeah, the microbiome does the exact opposite. The microbiome is going to fill us up with nutrients. Like that's the microbiome's job in the soil, is to actually provide the plant with the nutrients and the minerals that it needs. I hear all the time people saying that we've stripped the earth from the nutrients with all the poor farming methods. And that's actually not true. We've not stripped the earth from the nutrients. We may have stripped some topsoils from the nutrients that are in bioavailable form for the plants to take, but that's not just because we monocrop and all that stuff. The real core root problem of that is that we've killed the biome in the soil, because it's the microbiome's job to take all of the things that the earth is made out of, sand, sand, clay, I can't speak, sand, clay, and silt, which is the soil, and even rock, okay? It is the microbiome's job to take those parent materials of the earth and basically digest them and break them down. And then they are the byproduct of this microbiome that feeds it to the plant. And then the plant in turn gives them a lot of sugar, because we know like parasites and bacteria love sugar, right? We already know that. That's why when we have an override of too much bad bacteria, if you want to say it, that we really have a strong craving for sugar, and that the more we eat the sugar, the more it feeds that and creates that more imbalance, right? So I want to show you guys this really cool, hold on just a second, let me find it. Okay. Oh, I just love this picture because it just makes me think of like what's possible when we tap into having a healthy life and a healthy biome in our soil, and it kind of just feeds up into everything else. I have more to say about that, but this is actually the picture I wanted to show you guys. When biodiversity is there, we can reach a homeostasis state where hundreds of thousands of species of grasses and plant life in a jungle maintain an eco balance, and there is no opportunity for disequilibrium or unbalance or disease in that environment. But this is not the way we farm, and this is not the way we grow our food. Now, I want to show you guys an example real quick of the difference of like biodynamic regenerative farming, which is what we're working on here on our farm, and conventional farming. And biodynamic regenerative farming is a step above organic farming, because in organic farming, you might still till the earth. Biodynamic farming doesn't till the earth, because when you till the earth, you open up the earth and actually enters the microbiome. So there's other methods that we use to get the earth to be aerated and to get the earth to hold water and all these things. And so we use everything. Like it's the law of conservation, which is that like nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is transformed. You know, and if we even think about our human bodies, right? Like, okay, well, they came from another body and then they're going to die and go back to the earth. So technically our body's always been a part of this whole cycle of life and death and life and death and life and death. And even death is part of life. Like death is what keeps life going. So back to this whole farm thing here that I was showing you guys a picture of, you can see where the conventional farmer, can you guys see my cursor when I have it on there by chance? Okay, cool. You can see the conventional farmer like spraying and tilling. And what happens is that through years and years of doing that, you just dry up the ground because there's no microbiome. Well, the microbiome that feeds the plants creates all these deep, deep, deep roots, okay? Because you got a lot of fungus here too that actually attaches to the root system. I'll show you a picture of that real quick, and then we'll come back to this one. This is called mycelium, and mycelium will basically act like a webbing, and it is an extension of the roots, so that the roots can spread out even farther and get more nutrients than they would if they were just only getting nutrients from the root system as it is. But anyways, all these roots down here actually aerate the soil, right? Because there's lots of things going in. It's not compacted because you got the roots, number one. Number two, it's acting like a sponge, so it's going to hold all the moisture into the soil. And then those two things are going to be able to create this beautiful land that you see. But you see they got like all sorts of different things planted there. And in the back, they got some cows back there that are fertilizing the land naturally as nature intended. And they have this whole system where they work the animals into the land and they let the land regenerate itself. And there are, like I just said, there are like so many, we have a seed bank of microorganisms that are waiting to come alive in our body, just like there is a seed bank of seeds on the planet. So you could take a piece of dry land that has no seeds on it and start regenerating it with compost and stuff, and eventually things would start growing. Not because you seeded it, but because there's a seed bank down in the land. Even if it's dead land, it's in there. And so that's pretty cool. There's a farm called Polyface Farms. If you guys have never heard of that, I highly recommend you check it out. It's a super cool farm, and it will show you exactly what I'm talking about. And it's brilliant how he makes everything work. None of his animals are vaccinated. None of his animals have antibiotics. Like, they're the cleanest animals. They've never had anything on their land. They've never even put a single seed on their land. And through doing this regenerative farming, they actually have an area of land that's growing this grass. It's sort of like this turquoise color. And they've had lots of experts come out. And in 100-year of data bank for seed banking, they don't know what this grass is. Like, that's how ancient this grass is. And it was just sitting in the soil. And when the right microbiome came to play in that soil and could feed and nurture and bring that grass back to life, then it emerged. So I'm talking a lot about soil, but I'm hoping that you're seeing the correlation between the soil in the garden of the earth and the garden of your body. Because everything that occurs in nature is a mirror to our experience of being alive. And that's really cool. In 1 teaspoon of soil, a healthy soil, they have a population of 50 billion microbes. 50 billion microbes waiting to create life for us. The microbiome in its entirety is vital to life, and it is the reason why we are here today. And without it, life on the planet, life on Earth would not even exist. I want to kind of go over this real quick too, because this is a really cool thing about our bodies. When you don't have the soil regenerating, you don't have the microbiome there, what happens, like in this picture here, you see that it rains, but the water just sits on top of the soil. Like, there's nothing to absorb it in, because remember in the previous picture, I showed you that deep root system that the microbiome was at play with. Well, there's no root system in this land. So like, we've got little bitty roots, and you got these little things, and they pour more chemicals like fertilizer stuff on it to kind of make them grow, because there's no nutrients in the soil. So they got to give the nutrients on the top. And that just kills the microbiome more. It's this vicious cycle that happens. And the water just sits there. But there's lots of water there. How many times are we like drinking water, but if our microbiome isn't right and we're not getting cell permeability with the water's not actually getting into our cells. So we may be drinking a lot of water, but we're still dehydrated. And so that's kind of the same idea in our bodies with the microbiome, and how it helps us to even do things like stay hydrated and just making our bodies work correctly. There's just another picture. They're just inspiring to me that when I see this, I want us to see this, because we don't always see the inside of, we don't see the inside of our gut at all. Like, we don't see it. And it's easy to kind of like put it out of our mind, because out of sight, out of mind, right? And we don't even know what it looks like. But just imagine that if we were looking at the inside of our gut and we had a healthy microbiome, it's equivalent to looking at this incredible pasture full of diverse plants and life and green and vitality. And when you don't have the microbiome in the soil, all you really have is just dirt. That's the difference. Have you guys ever watched or heard of the movie The Biggest Little Farm? It's like a docu-movie. I'm curious. I don't see that. I'm looking in the chat. You guys can tell me if you guys have ever heard that before. That's another thing too, if someone wants to type that in, The Biggest Little Farm. This couple takes a piece of land. They had this passion to create a biodynamic farm as well. And they took a piece of land, and it was bone dry like this, like just dirt. And they basically brought it to life. And it's a really cool story, because the guy that created the docu-series, or docu-movie, I should say, it's not a docu-series, it's a docu-movie, he was a cinematographer in Hollywood. And so the cinematography of this place like coming to life is super inspiring. So I highly recommend watching that. Okay, I just want to show you guys one more little picture just for the fun of it, because this is kind of like, this is basically a grapevine root in the soil. And this is showing that the symbiotic relationship of this is the mycelium, right? This is the fungus here that's basically tied to that root system to support that root system in the ground and constantly feeding it as well. And so that's what's happening when we have our microbiome. Yes, we are feeding our microbiome, but our microbiome is also feeding us things back. As a matter of fact, I was just reading about something called postbiotics. Postbiotics are the waste products of the probiotics that we have already in our gut. And guess what they do? I mean, they produce enzymes for us, they produce B vitamins for us, they produce K vitamins for us. So, it's the same. It's the same with us as it is with the plants. So it's pretty interesting. Like, what is, oh, let me turn my chat off here. Kiss the Ground movie. Yeah, that's another great movie too. Absolutely. And then Dr. Zach Bush, he has an organization called Farmer's Footprint, and he has a show called, it's like a documentary about called Farmer's Footprint. And it's talking about how they take farmers who want to get out of the conventional farming method, but don't know how. And they go to his program and he teaches them how, and then he guarantees them their first year of profits. So first year is going to be hard. There's a lot of learning to do. And, but interesting enough, usually he doesn't have to pay them out. Like, they actually usually break even their first year, and then they just keep getting better and better year after that. And then they just love their job again. Like, farmers are farmers because they have some kind of passion for something that's natural, right? No matter what. Could you imagine if you're a farmer and you got to use all these chemicals all the time? And then how does that affect your mental attitude just because you're getting the poison in your body all the time? And then it's just not the same thing. You just feel worn down from it. So actually, I think it was like recently reported. I don't know if this is probably pre-COVID, because I think COVID opened up a whole new ballpark, but farmers had the highest suicide rate of any profession in the world for a while. And that's pretty sad. I'm just going to scroll through my notes real quick and catch up to where I'm at about the gut. All right. Let's take a look at gut issues and what is gut health. Gut health is at the foremost complaints of Americans today. Some 80% of our population now recognizes some disorder with the gastrointestinal tract, everything from esophageal reflux to food allergies, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease. And we're suffering as a population when it comes to gut health. So you think that our medical community at large would have an understanding of what's going on, but they really don't. If they did, they wouldn't keep giving us medicines. They tell us, what to do to restore our gut microbiome. So in our gut lining, we have different layers of basically immunity. We have the microbiome, which basically helps the mucosal lining, and it helps everything filter out. All this good bacteria and bad bacteria, good parasites and bad parasites, they're working it out for us. We don't have to do anything about it as long as it is diverse. And then they help support the mucosal membrane as well, which fills in all these little spaces between these cells, these epithelial cells, which are called tight junctions. And as long as those tight junctions are filled in and protected, then we don't get any of the bad things that are up here, which could be bacteria, parasites, things like that we don't want in our bodies, but also other types of debris and trash and chemicals and toxins and all that good stuff. Otherwise, what would happen is it would go down through these cells and into what is the other part of the immune system and the lymphatic system, and that would be carried away in our bodies. And so that would be an example of leaky gut. So we all, I think most of us kind of understand, we've heard that term leaky gut before, but this is kind of a better view of it, because you can see where the tight junctions just aren't meeting here. And glyphosate and all the things that we're going to talk about at the end here, they're all the things that would actually also cause a leak or a permeability issue in these tight junctions that would cause for us to feel quite sick and not be able to get well. Again, right here, this is a good picture because you have the mucus layer with the mitochondria protecting the gut lining. And then you have all this epithelium layers here, which have the tight junctions that are supposed to be working. And then here you have like all your cells, like your T cells, and all those cells that will go to work and play for you and help you out in your bloodstream when they're being protected. And when they're not being protected, what we have is a lot of inflammation. And disease really is, like Dr. Zach Bush said, it all comes from inflammation. And so you have all these different things that can come out of inflammation. And there's even a lot of today, more and more scientific reports are being written in medical journals and stuff talking about the severity of that, and how, with chronic systemic inflammation, just all the different diseases that you can get. They're quite numerous. Here's a really interesting chart that I found, and this is not up to date because you can see we're past 220, and this is kind of right around maybe 2015. But you can see how they've just like skyrocketed since 1950. But then look, check out what happened here. Something happened here, right? Because we're like in the mid 1990s. This one went up. This one went up. This one went up more. This one went up more. Like every single one of them just went up from there, like crazy up. And then we look at this other graph right here, which is really interesting. This is the glyphosate usage and the super seeds, as they're calling them, the genetically modified seeds, they're calling them super seeds. This is the rate at which it went up. And it interestingly matches these other rates really closely. It's hard to see. I don't know if you have it on a phone or not, but probably around, like we start to see here, early 2000s, like you can see here, like around in the mid 90s, you can see a leap right here with glyphosate. And then also chemical fertilizers here. This is 19 something. I can't read it. It's too small for me. I'm sorry. But this is in the late 1990 time frame, late decade. And you can see how fast people started using fertilizers. Well, why did they have to use fertilizers? Because this killed the biome. The biome wasn't there anymore to create life for the plants. So they had to start fertilizing it with synthetic fertilizers, which guess what? Those are more chemicals that break our microbiome down. And more and more articles started coming out, like in the mid 2000s, where they were started noticing, like, hey, you can actually tell what kind of cancer you have depending on what bacteria you do and don't have. Like if you have these bacteria, then you might be getting pancreatic cancer. Or if you don't have these bacteria, you could find out that you're going to be getting breast cancer. And so they started to link the bacteria in our gut, what was missing and what was there, and being able to predict what kind of cancer outcomes we would have based on our gut bacteria, our gut microbiome. And then here, this is just from the National Library of Medicine PubMed, where it's just talking about the interplay between the gut microbiome and the immune system. And this is what it has to say. The immune system plays a critical role in the susceptibility, persistence, and clearance of infection, with 70 to 80% of our immune cells being present in the gut. There is an intricate interplay between intestinal microbiota, intestinal epithelial layer, and local mucosal system. Those are the things I just went over in the other picture. And in addition to the local mucosal immune response in the gut, it is increasingly recognized that the gut microbiome also affects systemic immunity. So this is what now we're seeing more and more of the medical community starting to say. So the human biology is a symphony, and it's a harmonious coordination of the many different instruments that compose your body and the relationship that you have with all of nature. And the great conductor of that symphony is your microbiome. And we all know the value of our gut instinct or our gut feeling. And now we're understanding this at such a much deeper level, because the microbiome is an intelligent ecosystem that lives inside of us and outside of us. And there's just been, again, there's an avalanche of research just confirming this over and over and over again, that our gut microbiome is our connection to life. This is some really interesting information here. Let's see if this is it. Okay, cool. So your gut has an access to 12 other main organs in the body. They call them the gut organ axes. Okay, so let's just look at this. So first of all, this gut whatever axis, this gut organ axis is connected, you should know, by the microbiome. Okay, if the microbiome is not there, if the microbiome is deficient in diversity, you are not going to have good communication along these axes. So let's just see what would happen if you didn't have a good microbiome along the gut-brain axis. You're going to have stress, anxiety, irritable bowel syndrome, schizophrenia, possibly cognitive decline, and autism. And I'm not going to read through all of them. You guys can kind of look through there and see kind of maybe where you fall. Interesting, like, I don't know, a few years ago, all of a sudden I was just walking and my foot just broke from walking, like it was like a little hair fracture. So, I mean, that kind of tells me that there was something going on in my gut microbiome possibly that was interfering with my bones. let's jump to the chase. Well, let's just say here too. Want to be nice if we can just get out of these loops right here. And here's the thing, the microbiome is what can save us from these loops. Just this whole cycle of drugs and chemicals, and then drugs and chemicals and side effects and drugs, and because this dependency that we have on it. So when we have microdysbiosis, these are the different types of things that can cause it. From birth, C-sections, because you're missing the whole bacterial microbiome from the vaginal canal that's introduced to the baby when they come through. Breastfeeding versus formula feeding, that's going to make a big difference in their microbiome, baby's microbiome too. Of course, all these things, you guys can just look through them real quick and see antibiotics, steroids, NSAIDs, any prescription that says something about affecting your stomach, you know, herbicides, pesticides, artificial sweeteners, alcohol, sugar, putting too much, you know, using too much sanitizer, and also face masks. Face masks are not good for your microbiome. They're really not. And a lot of us think about probiotics as using probiotics as a way to help our microbiome, but really there's a whole lot of new interesting research that's coming up where they're showing that probiotics do not help restore your microbiome after antibiotic use. So here's a really cool study that happened not too long ago. They were investigating the state of microbiome throughout the gut, and 21 people were in this study. They all had a colonoscopy and an upper gastrointestinal endoscopy to have some of their, also they had some of their feces removed so they could have a pre-sample of what it was like before they had the antibiotics, and they were all put on a 1-week antibiotic. So group one, they divided them into 3 groups. Group one was a wait and see. They were going to wait and see like what happened, you know, does your gut restore on its own or not? So they didn't have any intervention after they did the antibiotic. Group 2 was put on a probiotic for 1 month, and group 3, they had a fecal transplant. So the fecal sample that they had removed before they took the antibiotic, after their week of antibiotic, they had it put back in. Okay, so here's what happened. The group who received the probiotic had the poorest response in terms of their microbiome, and they were the slowest group to return to a healthy gut. Even at the end of the story, after 5 months of monitoring, this group had not yet returned to their pre-antibiotic gut health. So you can see this was them. This is like kind of like all the little microbes, the diversity there. They had the least amount of diversity. The ones that had the fecal transplant put back in, they just immediately were replenished. And then the ones that just waited and see, look how much closer they are to the original state. I mean, that's pretty amazing. This is really important information for us to know because we think we're doing the right thing and we're not, and it's really frustrating. All right, this is just, we're kind of running close to time, so I'm going to skip over some of this, but I do want you guys to know this real quick. All oats, lentils, beans, wheat products, those products they're called desiccated. So they aren't GMO products, but what the farmers do is they spray them with glyphosate so that they dry the crop out so that it's easier to harvest, because some of these crops, if you cut them, you have like 1 week to let them dry out, and if they get wet, you lose the whole harvest. So this just saves them from all that trouble. So know that all of these particular things that you're eating, if you're going to the store and you're getting anything with wheat or corn in it, it has a lot of glyphosate in it, like super high levels of glyphosate. So that could be something that you could change to help your gut biome in a good way. There's some other good things that you can do. You can go outside and breathe the air because the biome is everywhere. The more places you go out and walk in nature, the better of a diversity you're going to get. Being in communication with each other, hugging each other, that actually creates more biome for us too, because when we're in the same room and we're talking, we're exchanging all sorts of information through bacteria and viruses that are coming in and out of our breath. So all sorts of cool things like that. Petting a dog, eating, of course, on the low side of the food chain, as close to organic as you can. Definitely eating wild fermented foods, because this is going to have like a natural probiotic that's naturally occurring. You can look up, there's a new cookbook called Fermented Cookbook, I think. I don't know. You can look it up on Google and I'm sure you'll find something like that. Anyways, and then learn about prebiotics, because that's really where it comes into play. And a lot of the products that we have are prebiotic products. Fulvic acid is a prebiotic product. Healing Trilogy is a prebiotic product, and Nourish is a prebiotic product because they're really fueling our body with whole food from an organic source, and that's what you want. And then, you know, I put Nova Coffee here because if you're drinking regular coffee, that's a direct hit to your microbiome. So just switch over to something that's cleaner, that's organic, and that would be a good thing for you to do for your microbiome as well. This is just about short chain fatty acids and how much that helps in the microbiome. And the main reason why I wanted to share that is because of what is in Gut Check. Let me just pull up Gut Check real quick. So I want to go over real quick with the ingredients. And I'm sorry, it left my screen, so I got to pull it back up. Can you see the screen pretty good, Tina? Cool. Would you mind reading this real quick while I'm pulling up Gut Check? It's a really interesting study that was done.
Absolutely. A program study was started for a regenerative farm integrated with children's education on the west side of Oahu, Hawaii. 100% of the native Hawaiians that were in this study going in were pre-diabetic. All these were children under the age of 18. Within 3 months, 100% of those children, holy smokes, were free. Oh my goodness, we're free of pre-diabetes. This occurred from changing one meal a day, their lunches, and helping them interact with that garden space and grow regenerative foods. They became part of the workforce. They became part of the educational experience around it, and it radically changed their health in 3 months. Think about this fact. This was the only one lunch that changed their trajectory of disease or health, and how that shapes their whole life. You know, Donna, looking back when I was in elementary school, I remember having one student in my entire grade level that had diabetes.
Oh,
One.
I don't even remember anybody having diabetes. I mean, I remember one kid had autism, but that was it. And now it's just like so many. So there's so many different things that are going on. I mean, in that world too, there's so many different culprits probably. But even looking at everything, look at adults. I mean, how many adults did you know that were as sick as we are now? But yeah, you can really see what's going on when you look at the kids' health, right? So
Right.
it was this one meal. It for sure was this one meal, but it also was the fact that they were in the garden and they were playing with the microbiome in the garden. So you can get the microbiome from being outside and playing in a garden. So if you can do anything, just plant a small little garden and go out there and put your hands in and stir up the dirt, let the dirt get in your face a little bit, get the dirt get in your fingernails, you know? Okay. It's 7:48. I know we have another call. Do you guys want to go through the Gut Check ingredients just real quick? Or do you want to save that for next week for the testimonials?
I think I would rather have you back and do some testimonies. You've done a fantastic job in sharing, you know, this information and the correlation. You want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen for right now?
Sure. I want to share this one last quote.
Okay.
Miraculous things are possible when we stop trying to outthink nature and instead co-create with nature. The speed at which we can heal is actually dumbfounding. And this is from him looking at his patients and helping them heal from major, major illnesses like cancer every single day. So that's just super inspiring. Something we just got to put in the work, you know, but it's possible. It's possible for really amazing.
Yeah.
There?
There should be a stop share.
Oh, I got it. See, yeah, got it.
There you go. Okay. So let me gallery, and where'd you go? Let me pin that, and I will pin. There we go. Okay. Thank you so much. The chat is just blowing up with gratitude for your information. People there was some trouble getting in a little bit. So next week, you guys, I'll have Donna back and we can go over the ingredients and why she's so excited about Gut Check. So make sure you bring a guest. If you thought this call was amazing, make sure that you bring a guest next week because we're going to build upon this. And those of you that are on Gut Check now that got it when it first came out on April 22nd, please send me a message if you've got a testimony to share. I would need that by Tuesday of next week if you feel like you would want to come on. And then Donna can take, 15 minutes, whatever, depending on how many, probably 10, 15 minutes to talk about why she's in love with Gut Check. And one of the things that she said to me that got me super excited about this product is I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Never. I
So,
don't know anybody else that has it. We're so lucky, and we get to take it. I'm super excited about it, and it uses fulvic too.
and it has the fulvic, and it's got the matcha, and it has the Microbiome X. It has case studies that back up the efficiency of it. It's like, I love this company. They always put out the best stuff. And
You guys are gonna love when I take the ingredients apart and like show you what they actually do. It's incredible.
yeah. All right, you guys, I'm going to end this meeting. There is a business opportunity meeting coming up with Marcus. Please reach out to whoever invited you to this call if you're interested in learning more about the business side. Again, Donna, thank you so much for your knowledge. Very, very powerful call. So with that, you guys, what?
I'm also happy to drop a link in the chat if you want for all the information that I have about gut check.
Well,
because some people may want to know what's in the.
Yeah, the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can something like that. Okay, cool. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.